Northeastern Jackson County, and more specifically the 6 Mile area in and around Fort Osage, was entirely once the western frontier. Though the families that would come to create, teach, and attend the one-room schoolhouse known as Combs School were, and many continued to be, long-term residents of the area. It was, however, by all standings in its beginnings, the western wilderness. Far from industrialized and established places east of the Mississippi River, this was a land of immigrant pass-through. Although the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 had occurred 67 years before the construction of Combs School, settlement and establishment of American-owned private property was not immediate, and not without continuing obstacles. The first opportunity for settlement began after the Osage Treaty of 1808 with the creation of the 6 Mile area, which allowed for settlement and farming of Americans wanting to move west. The Santa Fe Trail, 1821 to 1872, was the first of the 3 expansion routes west from Boonville, Missouri, which later connected to the Oregon and California trails, most outfitting at the 3 Trails Head in Independence, Missouri. As steamships became a major mode of westward travel and later railway, the use of the trails as a major route west became used less and less. Among those pathways, however, communities grew, as did the community of what is now part of the Fort Osage School District. As more families settled into the area, there was quickly a need for formal education for their children. In 1870, John and Mary Phipps gave a 1-acre parcel to the community for the construction of a one-room schoolhouse by the name of Combs School. The deed recorded on April 4, 1870, designate that the Phipps conveyed the property for the sum of $1 to the School Board of School Township Number 50, Range Number 30, for the use of said school township of the County of Jackson in the state of Missouri. Most of the 16 one-room schoolhouses used to educate the children in northeast Jackson County are now gone. In their beginnings, rural schools were ran with community funds while parents paid for books and sometimes the teacher's salary as well. In the 1950s, funding for public schools changed, giving way for the formation of the Fort Osage School District and the construction of large elementary schools and a high school. All 16 one-room schoolhouses were closed. Today, driving eastbound on 24 Highway towards Buckner, you might never even realize that you are driving atop the site of one of those schools. At the southwest corner of Lake City Valley Road and 24 Highway once stood Combs School. Combs School's teachers were often local members of the community and often young themselves. An 1885 picture of the school lists the teacher as 16-year-old Janie Childs, who later in life taught math at William Chrisman High School in Independence. Her students, many relatives of her own, and many known family names still residing in the Fort Osage area. Some of the streets we drive on or by every day are named after those families. The school contained all the essentials of a one-room schoolhouse: desk, blackboards, chairs, wood stove, and an organ. Originally, this organ was a gift to a young lady by the name of Sarah Burnley White from her father, Mora Burnley, in 1932. According to Sarah's daughter, Carol White Shropshire, her mother attended Combs School from 1923 to 1931. The Burnley family farm was about 1.5 miles from Combs School. Sarah would walk to school or sometimes be driven by her father. Carol was given the organ in 1975 before her mother's death in 1987. Students of Combs School, much like all one-room schoolhouses of the day, were responsible for providing their own study material in the years before public funding in education. Most studied from what were called readers. Combs School specifically used the following in 1899: Franklin Readers, Seaver Spellers, Milne's Arithmetic, and Rand McNally Geography. As readers were expensive, they were rarely kept in the possession of the book's first owner, however passed down from child to child, relative to relative. When a family couldn't afford to purchase one, Bibles or magazines were something to take to school and to read from.
I'm Sam Smith. I graduated from Fort Osage in 1960, and I started my school year at Combs School up on 24 Highway. And my experience there was that the beginning of a school was new to me, and my brother was 3 years older than me and had already attended, so I felt comfortable about going to that school. And our walk to school, in the summertime we walked, and it was my first experience of getting sandburrs in my socks. I went to Combs School my first grade and second grade, and with my cousins. My cousins had come back from Washington, and they moved close to us, and we built a little house there on L.G. Smith Road for them, and it was Jackie and Shirley Smith. Jeannie Smith was the oldest. Jackie was a year younger than me, and so that was our first experience in school. I remember Mrs. Carmine was a wonderful teacher. I remember having to stand in the corner at one time where I guess I wouldn't open my mouth too often. So it was a learning experience for me to go to school. My brother was had some real close friends that attended there with him. Harold Fisher was one of his closest friends all through high school, and they enjoyed being together. But after homeschool was my first memory of attending school, and it was a good experience. I had some good friends. George Coley was there. I don't remember when George and Lloyd Harvey moved in, but I know they attended school with us there. And I remember two twins that the Wallace twins, Gloria and Sylvia Wallace. They lived with their grandparents on 24 between the L.G. Smith Road and Combs School somewhere. And I remember at Combs School and Oakland that they had box suppers, and it was interesting that the girls would make up a little lunch, and then it was a fundraiser, and then we'd bid on the boxes, and of course we boys had our favorite girls to bid on, and so I was always afraid that if I bid too high, my dad wouldn't pay for it, and so I was afraid I was going to be reprimanded for buying a box for the girl that I really wanted to eat with. My experience in the Fort Osage School District has been pleasant. Our class gets together every 2 months for a luncheon. We find a place where we can all sit together and visit and reminisce over the things that what we remember. Sometimes our memories are a little shallow, but we try to do the best we can. But we have maintained a good friendship and maintained opportunities to express our friendship to one another. And that's one thing that Fort Osage has done for us. We're kind of in a rural area. We weren't in the city, so to speak. And I happened to go to college. I just went 1 year, but there was about 3 or 4 or 5 of us that went at the same time. If it wasn't from Fort Osage, it was classmates in other schools that went to college at the same time, and we've maintained good friendship. And then, as it turned out, several of our classmates ended up being teachers at Fort Osage, and Don Beebe was one of them, and Mildred Gross, and it's been a good experience.
The memories and stories of Combe School are still alive to this very day in the form of a constantly evolving and progressing school district. When we drive by one of our schools, when we attend a play or a sports event, hear the marching band fill the fields with song, or even sit in a classroom absorbing the education that will carry with us for the rest of our lives, we can know and understand that these experiences all had a beginning. Whether a resident of our district has roots a day long or 150 years long, knowing our history and how we came to be who we are today is what makes us a strong, thriving community for generations to come.
Red and white her banner is, proudly does it fly. O'er the home of fellowship, our dear Fort Osage high. Faithful are her servants, always there to try, to help her be